All right, welcome back to Boring Land. Got
Gabe.
He is here, Nick here. So grateful to have a friend to call on. Been doing a lot of solo reviews. He's feeling a little better on the up and up, and so we are going to be checking, or we're going to be reviewing
Sultan.
I thought you were going to go. So, Sultan is, and I just found this out. For some reason, I was under the impression this was based on a real life guy, based on a true story.
Right.
It's not.
No, it's fictional.
I mean, Salman Khan even said that himself, that this is just from the director's mind. I also saw a little article heading that said that some guy's claiming to be the real Sultan.
Right, and maybe that's where your confusion came, or maybe because it's so similar to Dongle, and Dongle was, based on true events. It's easy to get confused, but no, it's not.
Yeah, so it's not based on a true story. And that he was telling me this, like, literally just a few minutes ago. And I'm like, no, it is. I don't know where I got that from. Man, it changes things quite a bit. But this is, like I said, 2016 film. Salman Khan, this is our first film that we've seen that he's in, so that was nice. Some of the reactions that we've done to his films, like Kick, or we did one for Race 3, but I don't know if we ever uploaded it.
I can't remember.
Act the Tiger, Tigers into High, all those different things. He seems like a more loose type of actor as far as a little more silly and comical.
Right.
But sometimes in the trailers, at least, to me, it seems like he doesn't always land that looseness with the comedy, so to speak.
Right. He's a superstar. Make no mistake about it. When I tell you he's a superstar, he's a superstar.
Oh, there's a serious divide. Love or hate him.
Yeah, and make no mistake about it. I mean, he is as big as Amir Khan, and I mean, he has his fair share of detractors, but I think that the closest thing you can compare him as far as American actor, it would be like a Tom Cruise, who's an absolute superstar, but most people look at his acting and say, this guy's never going to win an Oscar. You know what I mean? Like, Tom Cruise is not that kind of actor. He's not that kind of serious actor.
That might be too
I'm just being
generous.
I'm saying in India, that's what I'm saying. That's how big of a figure, because he's huge out there, man. He's absolutely huge.
To figure what, in my opinion at least, what would be, I mean, not nearly as big time, but maybe a better comparison would be like an Arnold, where you don't go for the acting skills, you just go for the movies that he's in. I don't know.
Okay, maybe
even a Jason Statham, where different body sets, obviously, but Statham's not the best actor.
Right.
He is a little more charming. Anyways.
Right. But in any event, it was our first film, and I'm glad we watched this one because it was a great film. I mean, right away off the top, I always say I love this film. I had a little bit, initially, I was like, man, the pacing in the beginning of this movie, it took a little long to get where you wanted it to go, but once it got there, it was absolutely amazing. Give me some of your thoughts.
So, again, I thought it was based on a real story.
Right.
On a true life. I don't know where I got that from, but I really liked the movie as well. I really did. I love sports movies. I love underdog stories, and this had both those things. But I've got to say, knowing that it's not based on a true story, I don't like it as much. And that might seem really wrong, but the reason I say that is there's a lot of illogical things that happens in this movie.
Okay.
And we'll start off with, so the big first illogical thing is that he becomes a great wrestler.
Okay.
Almost overnight.
Okay.
And it's a long story for how that happened. It does not happen overnight in the movie. It takes some time, but basically he falls in love with a girl who wants nothing to do with him.
Right.
Nothing at all. And he's supposed to be like 24, 25. He looks a lot older than that.
Yeah. No. He's supposed to be 30. Because the grandmother said he's 30 years old, so he's supposed to be 30. Right.
He still looks a little older than that. But
exactly.
They show him as kind of a goofball. He's chasing kites, and he's working for his dad's satellite business or whatever. But anyways, he meets this girl, and she's a real serious female wrestler.
Right.
I mean, she's going to the games and the Olympics and whatnot. I mean, she's serious, and her dad runs his whole wrestling outfit. And so he's like, he finds out the only way he's going to get close to her, because he's instantly in love with her, is by becoming a wrestler.
Right.
And she says, you can't just learn this overnight. Watch me. So he says, I want to wrestle the top guy right now.
Right.
Right there in the mud.
Right.
And the dad's like, no. You're not going to do that. No, I can't. Trust me. I'll beat him. Trust me.
I'll beat him.
And I'll beat the next guy and the next guy.
Your top 3 guys.
So he's like, okay, fine, go ahead. And I'm thinking like, okay, he's really going to do it. but he gets
beat
clowned
down.
Yeah.
He gets beat down.
He gets humbled and he realizes, he says, okay, I'll be back in 30 days or something like
That's
that.
what he said. I'll be back in 30 days.
Yeah, so what happens next? He said, I'll come back in 30 days. And what happens?
Came back in a month, and then he put in work. He laid him out.
Yeah, but what training did he do?
Okay, now, I kind of see your point there. However, and I saw a lot of people online saying like, oh, well, you know, it's almost unbelievable. But you have to, from my perspective, and you know who Bernard Hopkins is. And I'm a huge boxing fan. I used to box when I was younger. That's literally what Bernard Hopkins did. Bernard Hopkins went from being a prisoner, because the guy was a jailbird, all right? Learning how to box basically in jail. He got out after serving a 10-year prison sentence, and actually he got off of good behavior. And he came out, and he was old too, for in boxing terms, because he was always like 10 years older than everybody. He got out, he might have been right around the same time, same age, I should say 30 when he got out. And this guy became the middleweight champion of the world, unified, which means he unified all 3 belts. He beat Oscar De La Hoya, he beat Sugar Shane Mosley, he beat Tino Trinidad, one of my favorite boxers of all time. And I mean, he didn't just beat him, he destroyed him. Mind you, here's a funny thing, this is how it parallels this movie. His very first pro fight, the guy lost. And he had no amateur career to speak of, did not go the Olympic route, any of this. So for me, I can believe this. Like, if a guy has a desire, he has a desire. I remember one thing when I first started boxing, the first thing they told me is, listen, you play basketball, you play football, you play baseball, you don't play boxing. When you step in the ring, it's man on man. That guy's trying to hurt you just like you're trying to hurt him. So he's a man. You saw his size. Absolutely, I can buy that. He went in there, he got beat down, but not because he was out. The other guys were stronger than him necessarily, because he didn't know the technique. And what did he say? Once I came out, now I know what I'm up against. Now I'm going to go and train. And he went to a different school to train and figure out how to guard against those things.
But the majority of his training is watching people as they did moves. I got it. This, as far as a movie aspect, telling a story, you got to give me something from his past that shows that it would be able to translate into wrestling, translate into sports, translate into fighting. But we don't see anything besides chasing the kites and being somewhat in shape. So you got to give us at least something to show us. Whether he had to chase chickens or something like that for his dad's farm or something.
That's what I was going to say. There was a throwaway line there that kind of said that his father said the best wrestlers are farmers. Because as you see, when you're a farmer, you're country strong, man. Because when the mule breaks down, you're the mule. And you saw him out there doing some of that work as well. Because again, it explains some of that huge mass he had on him. Again, to me, it's believable because I've seen, and not just in that, in MMA, guys that come out of nowhere, man. Again, strength is strength, and when we're talking about not a sport where you have to have specific coordination like you would in baseball or even basketball and football, but it's basically man on man, and there's a few moves you need to learn, because it's not like he becomes ultimate fighting champion overnight. It's wrestling. He learns how to flip guys over.
He became an Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah, dude.
And watching Dungo, you realize that in India that didn't happen all the time.
No,
right?
no, not at all.
And so the fact that, I assumed this was a true story. I was like, oh, he must have been their first men's gold champion.
Right.
Gold medal winner, gold champion. But anyway, so that's the first part, right? Again, ultimately, I did like this movie. I had a few issues. I guess I'm starting there. My second big issue is the whole chemistry and the whole relationship between him and Arfa.
That was my big issue. Like, dude, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Okay, I'm not much to look at because he's a lot to look at. Okay, but just because you became a wrestler, all of a sudden now she's back in love with him. Listen, that's all it took. You know what I mean? Come on.
Talking about that, the 2 times in the film, I don't want to give huge spoilers away because I do find out after we review these, people say, "Oh, I haven't seen that yet. Maybe I'll check it out." But there's 2 times in the film where she only starts to like him after he becomes super successful.
Right.
And I don't think they built enough on her character to make us think that she's that kind of person, like a gold digger, so to speak.
Right, which she's not.
And I understand that she's a female wrestler. Right. She's definitely independent. She's definitely strong.
Right.
She's not going to be told or led to believe this or that. But I felt like they did a horrible job with me believing at all that she actually cared about him. There was a few scenes where all of a sudden she was happy and they were dating or they were married or whatever.
Right.
But she cannot stand his guts.
Right.
And then he becomes basically the best wrestler in the country. I like him now. That to me, I don't know if that's what they were trying to do, but that's the way it came out. And then when he goes into the ultimate fighting route, the same exact thing. I mean, there is tragedy. We won't mention that. That's one thing we'll protect. But there is huge tragedy.
That was a gut punch, man.
Oh, man. And as far as the film goes, I really liked that gut punch. that really connected you to the character a whole lot.
Yes.
It made you feel, especially as fathers, right? And I understand why you had that schism, so to speak, in their relationship. That makes complete sense. But, I mean, he tries everything he can to win her back. And again, it's not until he's at the very top that she shows up. And I had a huge problem with that because I did not think that was true to her character. She did not seem like a front runner, so to speak. But I had a huge issue with that.
Right. And I think that, I don't think that their relationship started off organic. But then again, you know, we have to think about how in this society, and she kind of says a speech earlier on where she's like, listen, the reason I'm not interested in a guy like you is because you have no goal, you have no future. And in our society, women live and die behind a veil. That's not what I want to do. I want to do something. So the fact that he took her sport so seriously, it told her he understands how important it is for me to fulfill my dreams, and he is embracing what I love. So I think that's why she grew to love him. But I agree. Initially, I didn't feel that love was organic. But then again, it looks different in all different societies, and it looks different in all different cultures. You know what I mean? It's not what I would initially call, okay, yeah, they really fell in love in the fairy tale story, but I could see where, oh wow, he really thought so highly of me that he went ahead and completely changed around his life and embraced this sport, which he had no interest in, and became, not just embraced it, but became one of the best in order to support me. Because her whole thing was, I'm going to marry a wrestler, not because I want to be the wife of wrestler, but because I want that wrestler to know what my life is, so he understands that this is my focus, this is where my life needs to be, and, you know, we want to both be on this journey together. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so that I understood.
I liked the actress plenty fine. I thought she was great.
She was awesome.
But I don't think they did the character justice whatsoever. They make her so cold and so black-hearted, and like when he goes to that shrine and he goes to see her every single day and she walks by as if she's never even seen him before.
Right.
But then she says later on in the movie what she was really thinking every time she saw him. Right. I just didn't buy it. But I don't want to focus too much on that because it didn't ruin the movie for me, but that was a big issue I had. Going in near the end when he becomes the ultimate... So basically he becomes a wrestler, tragedy strikes, stops wrestling, still kind of like a local hero. And then the great thing too is this guy, kind of like a Amir Khan transformation, he was out of shape and he got in serious shape.
Is there some secret in it? Somebody put it in the notes. Because yeah, at one point he's got the big gut and then all of a sudden he's yoked again. It's not that easy. Trust me, it's not that easy. I've been to the... There's got to be some secret.
He definitely had...
something.
He definitely had the bear belly, but he was still pretty good jacked. Either way. Now, I'm assuming that it could have been like Amir Khan where he filmed when he was larger scenes first, lost the weight, and then the skinnier scenes, because he seemed like the same shape when he was in shape as a wrestler and in shape as an Ultimate Fighter. But the other crazy thing, and this will be my last negative, is... when he becomes the Ultimate Fighter, that whole storyline seemed just completely ridiculous. Like, I mean, again, I don't want to give anything away, but if you see the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It came too easy for him. That's my last complaint.
Again, where I disagree. And again, having been in a combat sport, can you remember one of the very first Ultimate Fighters, one of the most popular guys?
The Iceman.
What was his real style? This guy can throw down. This guy can land a punch and knock you out. How about Frank Abbott? Remember with the big beard and the big gut? And I saw that guy lay out judo champions. I saw him lay out. That's back in the day when UFC was awesome. Now it's horrible. It's garbage now. But back in the day,
garbage. It's way more competitive now. So.
You know, but you had the huge. I remember one of the craziest fights I ever saw in UFC. It was Hoist Gracie. It might have been Hoist Gracie, and he took out this big, like 300-pound, 400-pound sumo guy. And I'm like, this little dude in this judo gi that's probably $150 gonna take him out. He absolutely took him out, man. And you can still go on YouTube and find those clips. So for me, from a competitive standpoint, having been a fighter, listen, everybody looks good in the gym, and you can have all the accolades. You can hit the heavy bag and the speed bag as fast as you can, but you don't know if you got it until you get hit. I think, remember that movie, Bloodsport, where Van Damme's doing all this stuff, and then Bolo Young's like, very good, but bricks don't hit back. Exactly. Punching backs don't hit back. Speed backs don't hit back. So until you get hit, you don't know if you got it in you. So he had it in him. The guy could fight. And I mean, there's some people that could just naturally fight. And as big as he was, I bought that. I absolutely bought. The whole training montage scene, I had no problem with that.
Training was awesome. I loved his trainer.
That was awesome.
I loved how they gave some character development to his trainer, even though he's such a small, minor character. I really did like the owner of the UFC whole, I can't what it's called right now, but the whole company that was failing. I liked the character of the son. I thought he was great. I liked the relationship. There's a scene, I'm kind of jumping around here, going into my positives now. There's a scene where it's the owner's birthday, and he comes to Sultan's house or apartment and says, hey, my birthday, we're going to go celebrate. And he's like, no, I don't want to go out. I'm good right here. And then the guy sits down. He's like, what are you doing? You're going to miss your party? He's like, hey, you're like family to me. If you're going to sit here, where I come from, we spend time with our family. If you're going to sit, I'm going to sit. And I'm just going to spend my whole birthday that way.
Right.
I really liked that character. They kind of fast forward that relationship a little bit, but I understand why. That wasn't the big focus of the movie. But it was all about the emotions in this movie.
Right.
This movie makes you feel all the different emotions. And because of that tragedy that happens in the middle, the ending makes it is even more powerful. Definitely had some tears going.
Yes.
I was cheering inside, which, as a huge Rocky fan, as you guys know, that's what it's all about. Can that movie deliver at the end? Are you cheering at the end? And I definitely was.
I think that one of the things about this movie was when I went back and saw it and I reviewed it, I started thinking about all the parallels it kind of made, the social commentary it made. And at the very beginning, like you said, you like the son of the owner of, it was like let's call it UFC. It wasn't UFC, it was like pro something. But his dad gives him, imparts some wisdom on it. He says, this is the 5th largest sport in the entire world, or 4th largest sport in the entire world, and I cannot get these people in India to embrace it. I don't understand. And he says, until you have a champion that's Indian, they're not going to relate to it
because they need to have.
They don't care about the Western. They need their own, person to root for, and that's when he gave him this name. Look this person up, and I feel like that's what's happening right now with soccer here in the United States. We have the MLS, and for the longest time, soccer was the biggest sport ever. Football internationally, but since we have American football, we call it soccer. But it was the biggest sport, period, bar none. And here in the United States, we could care less. My wife, as you know, her family's soccer royalty. She had a couple pro players. Her brother was the captain of the soccer team at UNLV. And it was not looked upon until we started getting bigger on the national stage, the women's team, the men's team. And now that we got the MLS, so now they're embracing it here. Until you can root for your own, you're not going to. So I thought that was very, very smart. And then also, one of the things that I love was, going back to our first part, understanding that, man, men and women, and I have a daughter, so I think about it this way, our paths are so different, okay? And again, I don't want to spoil that, because that was one of the, big gut punch for the movie, and I mean, it really hit emotional pay dirt, as to say. But for men and women, if we have a goal in life, women really have to make a choice. Whereas, am I going to be an athlete, a businesswoman, whatever, or am I going to be a mother? Am I going to be a homemaker? Because there's no both. For men, we don't have to make that choice. And I think that that's why she was saying that all these women in India, for the most part, are born to be just wives, basically, and bear children, and they live and die behind a veil. So she wanted to do something else to inspire other girls to know, hey, there's another route. So I think that was awesome. That was the most important part of the message to me in this entire movie. But the UFC thing, man, I enjoyed that concept of being able to take this guy who's older, throw him in there, and again, he was just country strong, and he was able to compete, because UFC right now has killed the sport. I love boxing. Boxing is pretty much dead in America. Let's be real, man. It's horrible. It's brutal. But UFC it's become one of the biggest sports, and internationally, it's really, really huge as well. So I see that. I don't know how true this is, that it's getting really big out there in India as well, but I mean, it's actually dismantled boxing here in America. So I think this movie was very on point with all those points it made. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting. If you're looking at the movie as kind of a vehicle to promote mixed martial arts in India, they did it in a very smart way, where they start with wrestling, which is a huge sport in India, right, and then transition that into ultimate fighting, and making it very clear that it's not the same sport. You got to train differently. You got to think differently. I really liked the end where he's fighting against himself. I thought that was cool. I wish they would have done that a little more throughout the film.
That was a brilliant shot. I almost forgot about that, where it's literally him versus himself. And I think anybody who's ever stepped in the ring, and that goes back to that fear, until you get hit, you don't know if you can do it. Because the first person you're fighting is yourself, just to climb up those stairs and say, hey, man, I'm going to step in here. And that was an amazing shot. I thought the director with that shot, that was the best shot in the entire movie.
When it reminded me, too, of Creed. Remember in the Creed 1, the first one, where Balboa's training Adonis Creed,
Right.
and he has him look in the mirror. He's like, that's going to be your toughest opponent in the ring and in life. I do believe that. And then he's like, I want you to do some shadow box. He says, I'm going to leave you two alone for a little bit.
Right. And
awesome.
I think that it was the same idea here, but the director took it and gave us the visual of what it is to overcome yourself and your own fear. And I thought that was probably the best shot of the entire movie. That was awesome.
Yeah, me too. So I'm ready to give it a grade. This is, again, not my favorite movie of all time, but I really enjoyed it a lot. It was very entertaining. The entertaining factor for me is huge. The acting, Salman Khan this is the only movie we've seen him so far in, but for me is an interesting actor because he can show you the sadness, he can show you the goofiness, but kind of the parallels or the in-between is where I think he kind of struggles a little bit. So the acting's not the best, but I liked the characters good enough. I'm going to give this film a solid B because I really enjoyed it. I just didn't absolutely love it.
Okay, and I can see that. I mean, I come from it from a different perspective, and I think we're all biased for a certain, was my life for a long part, and not necessarily wrestling or UFC, but boxing and being in that and in that and it's so real. You're fighting yourself is one of the most things, and you become so focused that the only people you associate with is other fighters and trainers, and you can become consumed in it like he did. And I can tell you one thing: other than Floyd Mayweather Jr. God, I hate Floyd Mayweather Jr. I do. This guy holds one of the most unbelievable records there is, but he is I know him personally, so gosh. But anyway, we were at the same gym. I digress. Every single fighter has that moment where your ego has you up here and you crash down, except for Floyd Mayweather Jr. But everybody, from Ali to, De La Hoya to everybody falls. Like Rocky says in Creed, going back to the first Creed, and he goes, how good was Apollo? And he said, Apollo, he was the best. And then Adonis asked him, well, then how'd you beat him? He said, I didn't beat him. Time beat him. Time's undefeated. You know what I mean? Time gets everybody. And I think that was the most, I knew that, you know what I mean? I remember my first loss. It was devastating. Everybody falls, and it's always when you're at the height and you think you cannot be touched and that ego starts, setting in. So for me, man, I loved it. I think that either the director lived this himself or that's why I think you thought it might have been a real story. He definitely had somebody comment on this that knew what this life was about because he hit it on the nail. So for me, it's an A. I love this movie. This was awesome. Again, I had a little bit, it's not an A+ because of for me, the relationship wasn't organic between Afra and Sultan, and you missed a little bit there, but I can forgive that when you really nailed down everything else. And if you've been in this life, you know what I'm talking about. That's exactly what it is, man. That's just the reality.
Now, going back to your Creed line, because I'm a huge Rocky fan, I've seen him all a million times. That's kind of a retcon where he says that I didn't beat him, time did. Because Apollo Creed tells us in Rocky 3 how Rocky beat him. Do you remember?
I don't.
Because he had the eye of the tiger. He says, you had the eye of the tiger. You had the edge. He said, I wanted it, but you wanted it more.
Right.
And we've got to get you back, and we've got to get that look back. So I'm just saying, big, huge Rocky nerd here. Apollo says himself it was the eye of the tiger.
It was the eye of the tiger.
That might have been for some marketing purposes. But nevertheless, there's our review for Sultan. We hope you enjoyed it. We enjoyed the movie, as you can see from our grades, B and A. Please let us know what your thoughts are, obviously. And don't forget to do some of this if you like the video.
Thumbs up.
Some of that if
smash
you haven't
on
done
that
it yet.
Subscribe button. And if you in the comments, we were very careful not to spoil this. He had to tell me 18 because you guys know I'm Mr. Spoiler. Do not mention that emotional gut punch because I think everybody that watches this movie, that's what really brings in this whole movie. So try not to mention that. But anything else you guys want to comment on, please go ahead and do so.
And until next time.
Remember, that's what his signature is? I love it.
He's getting serious.